for enriching us that much with the fact that it's a subject that has not been treated so often here at the policy conference, and I think it is really greatly interesting and important for us to be better informed and have more insight. You will be the last speaker, Raffaella, Greco TONEGUTTI, for migration and development, as a migration and development expert at Enabel, as you have already been referred to by our precedent speakers. And voilà, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Diemen, for having the development angle at the table here. It's very much appreciated that you make the case for having development into the picture. I've been here with you the entire day, and I have heard a lot of migration words, and many times I would have loved to raise my hand and say, hey, but this has a very strong development impact, and yet I refrained, knowing that I would have annoyed you at the very end of a super long day. No, I promise I will be brief and funny. Not as much my presentation that is super boring. But here we are. Let's put development into the play. Let's put it into your minds, into the game. And what's development? What's migration? You've been discussing a lot of features regarding migration all day, but what's development here? What Juan and Christine and myself are we doing here at the table? Here are some concepts, some descriptions, some definitions. I leave it there. You will search, Google search if you wish, or maybe you know them by heart. What I would like to add here is that it's complex. It's multidimensional, it's multi-factor. And who started the day using the same words? Jean-Louis de Brouwer, when he mentioned return as a complex, intégré, multidimension, multi-factor phenomenon or action. And he went further, saying it needs to be embedded and prepared, or prepared and embedded, in individual willingness or individual projection, but also in the, not just in the communities, in the countries of origin or usual residence where people will eventually go back, but also in the community, in the countries of destination where they live. There needs to be a continuum. He used this word. I liked it very much, and there I really wanted to raise my hand and say, hey, this is a development-oriented way of setting the frame for return. But then we also heard from Jessie and from you, so Jessie from EMN and Jo from Fragment, other angles related to migration that you might think they are unrelated to development, and yet I'm here to say economic migration, legal pathways to migration, training for people that would eventually go and work to Belgium. This has an enormous development impact for the communities and eventually the countries where these people come from. So how many things you do in your daily work, they have an important development impact, and how the things are all related. This is why we are sitting here now. So it's not just giving some money or providing some training to those that receive an order to leave, or those who voluntarily decide to leave Belgium, or for this sake, any other EU and non-EU countries, because as Anne-Christine I highlighted here, many of those who receive a support from the Commission or any other European Development Agency are those who live in another African country, for instance, and go back to their countries of origin, the region, or in another African region. But all of these facts, they matter to development. And lastly, before going away, our keynote speaker said, again, let's open a Belgian debate around migration. And I would like to ask, and to keep the invitation open, let's open a Belgian debate on migration and development, or several debates on migration and development, and how do they interrelate. As Juan and Christine have said very clearly, since 2016, a lot more has been done in development for return and reintegration. But in fact, the idea that migration has something to say regarding development, and development has something to say regarding migration and return and reintegration embedded into this is quite, since quite some time, is into the European and international discourses. I just take some of the main documents, main policy lines. You have the global approach on migration, and then revised in 2011 global approach on migration and mobility, where you see that development cooperation is one of the main angles, of course not the only one. You study it from many others' perspectives, and return and reintegration with a particular accent on reintegration is one of the features that are covered there. But even in the agenda for change related to European development, you find elements of this. And in a very important communication by the Commission of 2013, Maximizing Migration for Development, where you look at all the elements that cross-weight in migration policies, in development policies. I will leave it at that, but there are many other things more recent that have been mentioned, where you see these two words, these two worlds, these two concepts intersect, and this is why they matter to you, even though you think, yes, but I am working in Belgium, I am doing things that are not necessarily related. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Same for us development people. Yes, migration impacts, and we do impact. What about Belgium now? We want to open a Belgian dialogue or Belgian dialogues. There are development cooperation political notes, and there are strategies and approaches on migration and development since quite some time, let's say at least 15 years, and more focus since 4 or 5 years, where we set thematic priority and also geographic priorities, 14 African countries in particular, and also thematic priorities for Belgium, not just for the development cooperation agents, but for all the actors in Belgium that are concerned by migration and development, development and migration, migration or development, etc. And among those, you have support local institutions with capacity building, local policies, the development of all the elements that Anne-Christine referred to, and support local communities, so not just authorities and institutions, but also community, to reintegrate returnees, and also support to returnees to have some incentives to better restart, rejoin the economic, social, cultural development of their countries of origin, but also work with the diaspora community that can be a very important actors in preparing that approche intégrée that De Brouwer referred to this morning. As the executive agency, the bilateral cooperation agency of the Belgian Ministry for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, of course, we take these priorities and we try to put them in practice. Global framework, European framework, Belgian framework, practice with you, and we will see it in a second. Recently, 4 of 5 projects have been funded and put in place. It means that Belgium just woke up yesterday and started to implement since 1817, 1819. No, as said, it's quite some time that there is a focus on the linkages between migration and development, but it's recent that there is such a great amount of projects running at the same time in different countries addressing the different areas, the different spheres that go from thinking return to thinking how good it is to be back home, and how difficult it is to be back home, and how maybe I would like to remigrate. What is there for me as an incentive not to, or as an incentive to do so in a safe, orderly, and regular manner. I will not go through the examples, but if you have any question regarding project in particular, I would be more than happy to answer. What I would like to point here is that we've been speaking of migration and development in a more broader way, and here we try and focus and say, yes, but what has reintegration to do with development? Because maybe intuitively one could think, yes, but if the person is abroad, no matter if in Belgium or in Nigeria or somewhere else, the person is working and is sending home remittances, is sending home money, so no interest for the community of origin to having the person back. So why do you come and tell us that reintegration is good for development? Oh, first, I've never said that it's good for development. We are trying to building this together. And second, we are trying to argue here that migration impacts development, development impacts migration. So in any case, there is an impact. And what we want to do through these projects and all the others that have been mentioned here is making sure that reintegration has a positive impact on the development of the community of origin or of usual residence of those who return, that it is done in such a way that persons are rejoining the economic, social, cultural, and political life in their communities of origin, and that we take into consideration all the multidimensional processes that happen at the same time in a non-linear and many times non-logical way, which means adopting what Anne-Christine referred to as an holistic and needs-based approach. This is the biggest challenge that you have and that I have and that we all have, because in order to have an holistic, meaning taking into account all the relevant actors, all the relevant aspects, economic, but economic is not just one, you can break it down in hundreds of small economic aspects, social, cultural, psychosocial, at the individual and at the community level, plus the needs-based approach, as it was said. Not every person needs the same thing, not every person needs the same incentive, not every person has the same ideas on how it will be once I'm back home. All these factors together make reintegration sustainable. And when we say sustainable, I will jump a tiny little bit. Exactly as everyone said, we consider it sustainable when returnees have reached levels of economic self-sufficiency, social stability, and psychosocial well-being that allow them, A, to deal with and to cope with migration drivers, the pressure of the community, the idea that it would be much better elsewhere, the need to pay back loans, the need to pay back other social kind of pressures, and once, so we go even further, once you have achieved all these, you can, and you're able to make further migration decision a matter of your own choice, not a matter of necessity, and you're able to make these choices in a free, safe, and regular fashion. You see how many challenges, one after the other, and how this talks to you, to what you do here, to what I do here. I just want to conclude, I promise, on a very positive note. There are plenty of opportunities. There are opportunities in this challenge to make sustainable reintegration happen. But there are also some important challenges. I just want to mention two. One is, again, reintegration starts before return. Therefore, the issue that was mentioned of referral system is extremely important, knowing that return happens all the time. Return is much more frequent than what we capture through assisted voluntary return programs. So referral mechanisms, they need to be national and they need to be locally embedded in the countries of origin in order that we are able to offer opportunities for reintegration, not only to those who go back through assisted voluntary return programs, but also to those who go back through other channels in order to avoid problems at social cohesion level in communities of origin. This is extremely important, that you offer opportunities that are not disruptive of social cohesion at community level. And the second is the difference in concept. Careful, sustainable return, when we say sustainable return and sustainable reintegration, exactly because we have such a complex definition for reintegration, might not mean the same thing. So let's be very careful also in our partnership relation with third countries and with authorities at national, subnational, local levels to make sure that we are all on the same page and that we are considering the same multi-layered, multi-dimension, multi-factor processes. I leave it at here, but I leave it with the invitation with which I have started. We need to open a dialogue at Belgian level because the richest part of this holistic challenge is partnership. Partner among institutions in Belgium dealing with migration, institution, organization, NGOs dealing with development, partner and normalizing this liaison, normalizing this complex and integrated way of considering return and reintegration. Thank you.
Thank you so much.